I love traffic jams. Okay? No, really. In fact, to be honest, I hate them. But at least here in Delhi, you associated artwork with traffic jam, and you may even like the music of it. But when you think about traffic jam, this kind of a catastrophe, right? It does not discriminate who is stuck in traffic. And so you can have an ambulance in traffic, stuck in traffic. You can have a pregnant woman with her husband trying to reach a hospital because she's about to give birth. At the same time, you can have someone at a tech conference stuck in traffic, and that person has time. But still, you do not discriminate. There's no optimization. Everybody is stuck in traffic the same way. And when you think about your JavaScript application, you're part of the problem because you also have traffic, your internet traffic, and you're putting too many vehicles on that wire. You're putting too much JavaScript and you try to push it to your client too early. It doesn't have to be that way. But still, we need JavaScript to build our applications because we want to have those rich user experiences. And the way we add and we create those experiences is by shipping JavaScript. So how can we solve that problem? Today we're going to talk about Qwik, which is a technology, a new way to build web applications that allows you to solve that specific problem. My name is Antoine and I come from Belgium. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Rosa. At Rosa, what we want is to help people live healthier for longer. When you look at all the... Can you read that, everyone? We're just going to keep it like that, okay? So when you look at what Rosa has in its ecosystem, we have multiple types of applications. Okay, Rosa is a marketplace. On one end, we have health professionals, and on the other hand, we have patients. And health professionals, they will use long-lived application. They will use application that they open in the morning to manage their schedule, to manage their appointment, and they will use it for the entire day. But when you think about patients, they will go on a platform they will go on a website that allows them to search for appointment, to find a health professional and book an appointment. And there it is not a long-lived application. It is an application where you want the content to be immediately there. You want an instant web application. And some of you may say that, well, they don't actually need anything new. They don't need yet another web framework to build performant applications, to build applications that load fast. And they might be right, but the question here is, what kind of application are you talking about? What scale are you applying that application? And how much money, what cost does it represent to actually optimize this application? So how much money do you throw at the problem? How many people do you put to optimize this? And at Rosa, at some point, we tried to push Angular to the boundaries of what it can achieve. And so we had, within our NX model repo, we had a design system with a lot of Angular components that were used in a long-lived application, the calendar that health professionals use on a daily basis. And then we said, okay, can we reuse those components to build a marketing website? But for the marketing website, we didn't need that much interactivity, okay? And so what we did is to have Angular Universal server-side generate all the content, and then we ship that to the client. But then if you ship that to the client, what's amazing is that you have great Vital scores, you have great Core Web Vitals, but you lose interactivity. So to retrieve interactivity, what you need is to hydrate. But hydration impacts the time to interactive. So how can you do that? Well, using Angular Universal, you will generate your static HTML, and then instead of importing Angular in the front end, you just remove that script tag that imports Angular, and you re-add interactivity later on. And this will work. This can give you really great result when it comes to a marketing website, but it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale and it is not worth it. Because at some point you will need to figure out and solve complex problems such as lazy loading, code splitting, etc., etc. And for a very simple marketing website, we still ship nearly 20 kilobytes of JavaScript. we can do better. The true value proposition of Qwik is that it will deliver instant web applications that are immediately interactive, and it will do so automatically. So you really put the performance, the load performance of your application on autopilot. And so you will have the same performance on D0 the day you ship, 3 months later, 6 months later, or 2 years later, and without having to invest engineering power into it. And that is opposed to cycles that we know with other frameworks, where as you build more stuff, as you ship more features, your performance is going down, and then at some point you say, hey, I need to optimize this. And then you spend some engineering time to optimize for the performance. And you have those cycles where you ship and then you optimize. And you always have that trade-off, where on one hand, you have to choose to ship something, and on the other hand, you have to optimize for it. So why is Qwik able to achieve that? Well, because Qwik has two properties. It is resumable, and it is progressive. So resumable means, you have to compare that to, as opposed to being replayable, it doesn't need hydration. And progressive because it is able to lazy load to an extreme level of granularity, and it can delay the code execution. And by the way, you might recognize Miško's face, who is the father of Angular. Miško is also the father of Qwik. So Qwik is resumable. The best mental model to grasp what being resumable means is to think about the virtual machine. So we all know virtual machines, right? And you can start a virtual machine, then you can interact with it, you can build a state somehow by opening an application, and then at some point you say, hey, I want to stop using it here, I pause it, and you can copy the file of your VM, open it on another computer, and start exactly where you left off. Resumability does exactly the same, but with HTML. Exactly the same with your web application. On the server, you will compute the state, you will server-side your application, and then you will serialize the entire state into the HTML. That HTML is shipped to the client, and the client can start just where the server left off. That's how you have something that is resumable, that's how you have something that is instantly interactive. Because when you think about it, server-side rendering adds traffic. Okay, if you continue with the analogy of traffic, when you perform server-side rendering and then hydrate, this part that you ship 2 times. Okay, you ship it in the DOM, and then you also ship it in the JavaScript bundle that you're downloading to rehydrate the whole thing. With Qwik, as soon as you get the HTML with the serialized state, you're immediately good to go. There's a global event listener that will get you starting, and Qwik Loader will lazy load all the code. So Qwik is progressive. And so if you looked at some Qwik code already, you'll see that there is a $sign. And every time there's a $sign, it will go through, so your code will go through a piece of code which is called the Qwik optimizer, and every time there's a $sign, it will be split into its own file. It will create one file per symbol. So every time you have a $sign, you have a boundary, and you will create a symbol. So pay attention to this very simple component, and you have that on click, and at the end you have a $sign. That component will be transformed into this by the Qwik optimizer. And notice that the on-click has now an import statement with a special, I would say, string in there, and that string is a reference and contains the name of the symbol of the event handler. And the event handler has its own file. Okay, here it's a simple function, but you could have an event handler with a lot, way more logic. And the key thing here is to understand that Qwik will split your code into many, many files and then allows you to package it and build it in the best possible way. So let's have a quick look at how this can work in practice when you have such a fine-grained, I would say, output at some point. So if you look at this and pretend this is an application, and you have it server-side rendered, the application downloads the entire JavaScript while the user sees that HTML, where they click and nothing happens. And then at some point, all the code arrives in the client and the whole application is hydrated. Now, imagine that you go up to the resumability example. So here, the HTML is there in the client, and immediately the user can interact with it. And look what happens when I click on a component. There's only that component that will be resumed, or that component and the one that is connected to it somehow, because there's data flow or something happening. But it is important to understand that here I clicked on components, but really with Qwik you have lazy loading up to the level of the event handler. And so if you compare the entry points of how you can interact with your application, in Qwik you can interact with your application and start using from any event handler. So the entry points to your application can be any type of interaction. If you compare that to hydration, you have to start somewhere on your component tree and then go down up till the end, and then you will have the ability to interact with your content and play with it. But how does the fact that we have those very tiny files, how does that solve the issue of traffic jam? Well, once you have all those files, you can decide how to group them. You can decide how to bundle them. And so that's what Vite or Rollup will do. And then you have your bundles. So your bundles they're really the vehicles that are on the road. Those are the traffic. And now you can ensure first that you have nothing duplicated. And second, you can design your bundles in a way that you will have your ambulance shipped first. So you have all those files, and on one hand, you could put everything into the same bundle. Okay, that is what a traditional SPA will do. Then a bit further, you can optimize and have lazy loaded modules. You can have a whole part of your application which is lazy loaded later. And then at the extreme part, you have one symbol per bundle file, and there everything is in its own file. But there, it can happen that you have cascades, where one file requires another, which requires another, and yet another, and yet another. Okay, so there's an optimum to be reached where you do package the files that belong together in something that is meaningful in the right, I would say, vehicle. Imagine now that you can create the perfect bundle by monitoring how your users interact with your application. Okay, so based on real user metric and how users actually start to play with your application, you collect when a symbol is consumed and then do some statistics and say, hey, those 10 symbols, they're used by 95% of my users within the first 10 seconds that they interact with your app. Then put them together, create that ambulance, and make sure that that file will be shipped first. And that is what Qwik is able to do with 3 single lines of code. All you have to do is to configure a module which is called Qwik Insight. And Qwik Insight will literally observe what's happening when your application is used, send the symbol that are consumed to a cloud, and then when you build your application a second time, it will determine what's the optimal bundle configuration. So with Qwik, you will reach unmatched performance on autopilot. You don't have to do anything beyond adding those 3 lines of code, and you will have that at any scale. At Rosa, we've been using Angular since the start. We love Angular, and we love Angular even more with the direction and all the innovation that is happening today in Angular. Because we used Angular, we've been using Angular for so long, we also wanted to reuse part of what we built together with Qwik. And today we're going to look at 3 ways to integrate Angular and Qwik. Let's first look at iframes. So in the case of Rosa, we started to put Qwik in production in October 2022. It was not even beta back then, and so there was not the large ecosystem that exists today for Qwik. And so what we did was we were building a new application, and so we started building that application with Qwik. And at some point, we also needed to reuse an Angular component. And what we did was to embed that into an iframe into the web application. And so here you have like 3 different parts of that application. The first part fully in Qwik, the second part with an iframe embedding an Angular component, an Angular application, and then eventually you could reach another part of that application which was fully in Angular. So to achieve that and to achieve like a progressive transition from Qwik towards Angular, you can put a reverse proxy in front of your application and then determine based on the route whether you serve the Qwik application or whether you serve the Angular application. There's no big bang needed, and you can use that as a transition strategy. You might wonder how you manage, for example, the fact that you can be trapped into your SPA once you enter the SPA. There are tricks to solve that problem by forcing the reload of the application, and then it hits back the reverse proxy, which will reroute to the right part of the application. Iframes work, but they have some limitations. Okay, Angular and Qwik are completely distinct applications, and custom glue is needed. It is needed for DX, it is needed for deployments, because when you're developing working on that application, you have to serve 2 different applications. You need to deploy 2 different applications, and you need to be sure that they are in sync. What other strategy could we use? Another one is to use Astro. And before we enter into Astro, just a reminder that we have, like today, every, I would say, front-end technology has their meta framework. So we have Next and Remix for React, we have Analog.js for Angular, and then we have QwikCity or Astro for Qwik. So we can use Astro, but Astro kind of popularized the island-based architecture, where you can combine different technologies together, but also split your application into different islands, and then determine whether or not you will hydrate an island, and leave some non-interactive islands without any hydration. But Astro needs Vite. And so if you want to use Astro and Angular together, you need Vite, and that is just what Analog.js does. So Analog.js is based on the Vite toolchain, and so by using Analog, you will be able to integrate with Vite. So Astro can be used as a way to Angular through Analog.js and Qwik. Another thing you can do is to use qwikify. And qwikify is a way that is basically a function that will consume components written in a different framework, can be React, can be Angular, and it will return you a Qwik component. So if you look at that example, you can have, for example, ng India, which would be an Angular component, and then you pass it to the qwikify function, and you will have a Qwik India, which would be a Qwik component. And then you can just consume that component within your Qwik application. Now, there are a couple of things that you need to be aware of. You will have a fully isolated Angular application with state, lifecycle, etc. There's no tooling hassle because you basically have everything into one into one application. There's no Qwiks will be deployed. You need to build large islands because every time you use qwikify, you will have a fully fledged Angular application. So you can combine Angular and Qwik in different ways. Iframe is one way, Astro and qwikify are another way. One thing to remember with Astro and qwikify is that you're limited with standalone components, while with iframe you might have more flexibility there. So unmatched performance on autopilot at any scale. And in the end, instead of having your ambulance stuck in traffic, you will have amazing performance from day one, and you will maintain it as long as you use Qwik. And in the end, you will have that ambulance with the road free to go to deliver the care patients need. Thank you very much.